Hey YouTube, I wanted to just quickly show some progression of my Byzantium game here, just to show that I did end up getting the PU over Russia, the glorious Russia at that, and a lot of expanding going on into different theaters. So pretty cool run, which was my previous video, and I'm sure I could get the Form Roman achievement personally, as it's only 1670. But that's not what this video is about. What it's actually going to be about is the sort of EU4 DLC, or I suppose Paradox DLC kind of controversy. And I want to prefix this by saying that I watched a video that kind of introduced me to what was going on about a month ago, by a smaller YouTuber who's bigger than myself, but I probably won't mention his name just because I'm about to say something critical of him, and the last thing I want to give the impression that I'm hating on the guy. But I watched about a 30-minute video, and he really didn't really say anything more than what I would expect him to say based on kind of the title of his video. So I'm going to try to avoid that and actually say something relevant. And with that being said, I'm going to, because it is difficult, and I've been accused of doing the same thing in the past, for the record, it's quite difficult to be really clear and concise. And for that reason, I'm going to start off by talking about some positive things that I actually don't think Paradox gets very much credit for. And then I'm going to move on to talk about some negative things, but not so much, as most of us are sort of aware of the drawbacks of this game. But then I will finish with simply talking about like what it means to me, the significance overall. So, with that being said, this person in particular talked about a lot of the drawbacks of the DLCs, the features. But these things are completely subjective, as far as I can tell. And one thing that I really like talking about features is the fact that money is really important in this game. In previous patches in this game in the past, money really wasn't that important, really. And as a player who is coming from EU3 years ago, EU3 was completely and utterly based around your money. You basically, from the onset of the game, you didn't have an income. There were no monarch points in the game, and you would basically have sliders where you, like this, where you slide your production, like all the different facets of your nation. And in order to make any money, you would basically have to mint money by turning it up. But when you put resources into minting money, it would turn your technologies down. Does that make sense? And with that being said, it would also generate inflation. So you could basically just boom, like full blare finances, and it would turn your technologies down. And it would generate a massive amount of inflation. And actually, most games, from what I could tell, like my brother who kind of introduced me to the game, you would usually fail due to like a complete economic crisis rather than anything else. And I really think that that is appropriate, because that is how most empires did fail, is via their diplomacy. So in EU3, your money, like to have your minting on the minimum, kind of like having your root out corruption on the maximum, and to be making money was huge. In this game, if you played as a nation, for example, like Ming, and you're making a ton of money from the onset, and you build buildings like temples in every province or significant province, and you're just making so much money, and then you're hiring +3 advisors, your force limit's maxed out, when you get to a stage that you've done kind of everything you can and you're still making money, it just becomes a kind of trivial number at that point, you know? And that is a direction that this game has moved away from, which I actually really appreciate because, as people might know, like as an enabler, money always has been very important. And currently, with the corruption, which is one of the mechanics that some people kind of criticize and they don't like so much, a lot of the newer mechanics, or they don't feel it was necessary, as well as institutes, having to embrace institutes, these things actually make the game completely different in the regard that you can never really get enough money, right? The bigger you are, the more powerful you are, and the bigger you are doing, the better you are doing, the more money you need. And that is something that I not only think is cool, but I really personally appreciate. So I thought I would just say that. And another thing is that I really don't think Paradox gets much credit for the fact that they release large patches which add a lot to the game. And they release a large patch that adds a lot to the game at the same time that they make an expansion. When people criticize the expansion, they don't criticize for a lack of content. They usually don't consider what was delivered in the patch for free. And that is something that I just wanted to make sort of aware. I think if anything, it is Paradox's fault. It's nobody's fault but them. And yes, the argument can go on that sometimes you need the expansion because the game is kind of ruined without it. But, make sure to consider that they have added so many provinces in the game and so on, which is not listed, under the features of the expansion. The game has really come a long way, and I tried to give an example of that in my last statement. Overall, as a sort of consistent trend, an ongoing trend, I like the direction that this game has gone, and I appreciate it. I appreciate Paradox for what they've done in that regard. But that's enough defending Paradox. I'll move on for a moment to this kind of drawbacks. The reality is this game is aging. It's not new anymore, and it always has been. It's a niche, and for sure it is one of the best, if not the best, in the kind of genre. The extreme, hardcore, grand strategy aspect of this game. But at the same time, it is so expensive. It's really, really expensive when you consider all of the DLC, many of which are kind of necessary in many ways. And the reality is if you spend the same amount of money or less, I mean, let's be real, on other games, you're going to expect a certain quality of game. And that's going to be, I would say production value, like graphics, for instance, sound quality, sound design, that kind of thing. Although, personally, I would prefer superior gameplay as opposed to worse gameplay. But with that being said, not only does this game not have the same kind of gameplay that you would expect from the amount of money that you're putting into it, it does not have the kind of quality, the AAA quality that you'd like or expect, but it also is riddled with quote-unquote features that would be considered unacceptable for a AAA $100 title or so on, or a game that has a ridiculous amount of downloadable content and so And yeah, I don't want to rib on them too hard. Most people know the issues. The reality is there is an issue with the fact that this game is ridiculously expensive, and the way that most people get around that is they buy things in sales and bundles, and they, quite frankly, they wait for the game to become cheaper. The real controversy really sparked when Paradox raised the prices of their DLC, almost clear across the board in certain regions. And that, I don't really know what to say about it. Like, I'm not going to dive too much into it, but it is crazy to me, is all I can really say. Like, in summary, it just seems bizarre to me personally that they would raise, even from looking from their point of view, or perspective, that they would raise the DLC, and they got a lot of criticism for that. But finally, the last real reason I wanted to create this video and talk about it is because I wanted to talk about what all of this means to me. For those of you who were following me a long time ago, when I was much smaller than I am now, they'll know that I basically was outraged, like everybody was, when the Rights of Man, no, not the Rights of Man, excuse me, Common Sense came out. And I knew, even before the DLC came out, I was not a fan of the kind of economic policy, if you will, of this game. And I knew the reason why is not because Paradox had necessarily done anything wrong, necessarily, but it was actually the principle. The principle that you're buying DLC for a game that is essentially, in some ways, it is very indie, and it is not their primary concern to actually fix some of the issues that are already existing in the game. Instead, they add more to it. And I was proven 100% correct in my mind when the Common Sense came out, where I found myself in a scenario where I had just paid for an expansion which effectively ruined my game. And that is not a pleasant place to be. And again, they did kind of resolve it for the most part fairly quickly, but it is the principle which is really disturbing to myself personally. The possibility that you invest a lot of time and energy, into a franchise, and money as well. And with the looming possibility that at any time they could make a mistake and essentially ruin your game, but not only ruin your game, basically charge you to have their game broken. I've been really heartbroken in the past. I've played games like most people of my age who consider themselves gamers. I've played World of Warcraft, for instance, and I very much have very little faith in companies or corporations' capacity to be responsible when they have an economic policy that is already lacking in principle, where they kind of they've already made it clear that we have the upper hand and not our consumer. I don't have faith in them to do so. I've always seen the opposite result, where they, whether intentionally or not, they abuse the situation. And Warcraft is a good example of that. I don't think I could possibly even conjure in my mind a better way to shill your phenomenon and really at the expense of your own consumers, and ultimately create the demise of what was the largest gaming community ever. That is the perfect example. I don't think I could have done it any better myself if I was trying to sabotage the phenomenon that was World of Warcraft. With that being said, this person in particular, some of you might know who I'm talking about. It's not that relevant, but he actually said that he rates this game a 10 out of 10. That EU4 is a 10 out of 10. I give EU4 the company is not trustworthy and does not deserve your unbridled loyalty out of 10. I give EU4, the company is not trustworthy and does not deserve your unbridled loyalty out of 10. I love the game EU4. I love it. It's my top 3 most played games ever. I honestly don't know between my top 3 which is really where things stand in terms of my most played, but I've put about 3,500 hours into this game, more than most games, let's put it that way. I really enjoy the game, and I'm really grateful to be a part of the community. I love the EU4 community. I love it how we're able to have a good time, and we have some top-notch memes and so on in our community. People are hilarious, but at the same time, we're a little bit more serious-minded and, quite frankly, intelligent, if I do say so myself, than many other communities. And this game, I've always looked at it as sort of an opportunity. I was amazed at how really rewarding it is to make content, and how well received that content is when you are kind of deserving of recognition. And so I just want to throw that out there, that I definitely love this game, and I really appreciate you guys. But I'm just making it perfectly clear, and I want it to be clear from the very beginning, that at the moment I enjoy this game, and it's profitable for me. Do you know what I mean? I feel rewarded to make this kind of content and get feedback, and it is profitable for me. And I just want to make it clear that if I had the opportunity to have the same kind of reward from playing another game, and by that I mean it was viable, that you guys would appreciate it and so on, I wouldn't even hesitate to do exactly that. And the reason is because of that is the summary of this whole equation, is what I'm trying to say. I will always remember this game. I've spent years playing it now, and I will always appreciate it, and I'm going to continue to play it into the future, for sure, no doubt. But I'm not some kind of EU4 fanboy or loyalist. They have already shown me that in a moment's notice, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they are poised and ready to make a mistake and kind of screw over their own community. And the feeling is mutual. I am poised and ready to move on to another game that I enjoy, that is just as rewarding, if that opportunity was to come along. So I don't want you guys to be like caught off guard if something like that ever happens. And this same individual was talking about branching out to different games. I have been open and honest about the fact that I would enjoy doing that as well, even before this kind of thing actually occurred. So that's about all I wanted to say, guys. I'm always going to be open and honest with you. I'll just tell you that right now, even if it might not even be it might be at my own detriment. Unlike other EU4 personalities who, might be sitting there trying to actually sell you the DLC themselves. Yeah. Shots fired at DDR Jake. Lol. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.